This is session 3 of my solo Mythic Bastionland campaign, following the adventures of the gilded knight Knotte and his squire Maldita. In the previous session, they traveled to Freetown together with Demelza, a scout sister that they met on their travels, who had made them aware of a threat of undead people who are roaming the lands south of Freetown and are putting people at risk. So Knotte went to this holding seeking help. He encountered the steward of the town, Howell. The circumstances of meeting Howell was that Howell was being accused of adultery by a peasant from the town, and Howell, being a popular politician, a popular figure in the holding, was able to shrug off this accusation, and Knotte took his side. So did Maldita. Demelza was less convinced. They joined Howell in his offices. He has a workshop producing sacred silks, which is one of the big exports from this holding. He's a wealthy man, and he convinced them, rather than to meet this threat head on, he convinced them to travel to an associate of his in the north, a healer named Carenza, who he gave a letter of introduction to Knotte and to deliver to her. What Howell intends to do is to work with her and try and extract something profitable from these undead creatures. Maybe there's some potential medicine that could be developed from their affliction. Knotte doesn't know that. Knotte just thinks he's been sent on a quest. He's very impressed with everything that's happening so far. He's a bit of a naive young knight. So he and Maldita have traveled away to do that. Demelza remains in Freetown and is interested in dealing with the problem herself in a more direct fashion. So she is going to look for mercenaries or fighters of some description that she can hire and deal with this undead threat. Knotte and Maldita come to a burning graveyard where the locals are distraught and are digging up the dead and burning their corpses and destroying their bodies to prevent this undead affliction from spreading further. And they're being guided in this by the Rose Seer, a kind of a prophet who can see the future, and her guide Virilag, an old woman who speaks for her, because the Rose Seer is someone who remains in the shadows, or has done so far. Knotte went to the Seer and Virilag for guidance, and what he was told is that he must draw blood from Maldita in a fight, that she needs to be bloodied so that she'll be prepared for what comes next. Incidentally, there's also some large bird flying around. Let me actually look up that. This is my first time recording with the book. I now have the Mythic Bastionland book, and it is excellent, and it smells fantastic. So even if you didn't want to play the game, you could just buy this book and smell it. You can't go wrong with that approach. Okay, so there is because the graveyard has been disturbed, there are vultures, great red vultures, flying above. They haven't been noticed by any of the people around. But one of these vultures has met Knotte before and intends to do him harm, but has not attacked yet. That's a summary of what's happened so far. I've got my list of threads that need to be tracked. There's a couple of things I've already mentioned. One that I haven't mentioned is Knotte came to this realm with a quest in mind. He was sent by the ruler of his home realm here to retrieve the banner of the Lost Warband. There isn't much detail on that yet. It hasn't come up. Knotte has been so impressed with the rhetoric of Howell when he met him that he didn't think to ask oh, by the way, are you aware of our warband that came to this realm? I don't know whether this is something that's important right now or not. So I'm going to ask the stars. This is the Oracle system created by Chris McDowell that I'm using in this campaign. So it's fairly straightforward. I'm going to roll a d12. The question I'm asking is, will the search for this lost banner have any immediate effect on what's happening with Knotte? Where he is now, what he's doing now. 9. Yes, but. Okay, so I will interpret that as, yes, it's going to have an impact on him, but Knotte will not immediately know what that is. So he is in a grave. He's in the vicinity of this graveyard, and he has been heard speaking by the locals. He has been seen going to speak to the seer. I think the locals can determine where he's from. They know he's from the neighboring realm, maybe from his accent. And the locals have had some interaction with this warband. Whether they will share that information with Knotte or not, I don't know. But if he were to investigate, he might find out something from them. And also they might potentially hold a grudge against him because some soldiers from his realm came through here, and I don't know what they did. Maybe they did something to these people. The immediate thing to deal with is that Knotte has been charged with attacking his loyal squire, Maldita. Knotte and Maldita were both farmers before Knotte found his gilded armor, and together they've gone out on this quest with romantic notions in their mind. They probably spar, they probably practice their fighting skills, but this is something different. So Knotte is going to draw blood, or attempt to draw blood from Maldita. It's a dark night, and the main source of light is the burning graveyard behind them. That's behind Maldita, and behind Knotte is a caravan painted with roses, which is the caravan of the Rose Seer. And Maldita looks in awe because her friend, the Gilded Knight, has just spoken with a seer. Seers are known as being wise, mysterious people who have great power and are extremely knowledgeable about what the future holds and what is the true meaning of things. And Maldita is extremely curious to find out what he's just learned. Incidentally, because Knotte has just interacted with a seer, he will have his clarity restored. Just double check that. Clarity is restored by consuming a stimulant or receiving guidance from a seer. So the guidance is maybe not what he'd hoped for, but it is guidance, so he's back up to full clarity. He had lost clarity previously by having his sleep disturbed when he was attacked by the bird that is currently overhead watching him. Knotte carries a mace, which is a proper, hefty, threatening weapon, and a dagger. I think he will place the mace down on the ground next to his helm. He removed his helm when he wanted to talk to the seer, to pay respect. But he's still wearing his plate armor, and he holds his dagger and looks at it for a moment, and looks at Maldita, and she comes close to him. He can't see her face very well because the light is from behind her, these flickering flames. There are a few of the locals distraught from burning the corpses of their friends and relatives, who are taking notice of this strange knight wearing very impressive golden armor. And Knotte speaks. Maldita, my dear friend, I have a clear instruction from the Rose Seer. And Maldita nods, and Knotte goes on. We must fight, and I must draw blood from you. I'm not sure how Maldita will react to this. I will ask the stars. So there's a potential that she will just completely submit to the will of this prophet-like figure, the seer, and take part in this fight. willingly and let herself be harmed, or accept that she will be harmed in the fight. I feel like that's unlikely. So I'm going to roll 2d12 and take the lower. I've rolled 2 7s. Does she submit to this? Yes, but. Maldita wavers for a moment. She said that I must be harmed, I must be cut by you, and Knotte nods. But that it must be a fight. And he nods again. It should be a fair fight, Maldita says, and she seems to be some stubbornness or some strong will asserting itself in her, and Knotte kind of looks at her with a curious look on his face. Maldita says, I wear no armor, and you stand before me in gilded plate that stuns anyone who sees it. Can we make this a fair fight? And this is Knotte's friend, and he sees that she is being respectful of the seer's wishes, but also fearful, and she doesn't want to be just beaten down by a knight in all his finery, and he accepts this. He's already taken off his helm. He'll remove his plate armor, which is a slow process, and his gambeson. So he's completely unarmored now, just as she is. And they both wield a dagger, and they're equal, on equal footing, at least in how they're equipped. And for better light, they move closer to the graveyard. The villagers are finished with their grim work. They're no longer burning anything. They're kind of huddled together. Some people are weeping, and this strange pair of foreign visitors, who they know to be in some way connected to a warband that has passed through their village before. Let me ask the stars, did the warband do harm to anyone when it came through here? Are there any of the people buried in this graveyard who were killed by that warband? 7. Yes, but. So the warband came to the nearby village and killed at least one person, which would seem like an offense, but there's a but there. So perhaps they killed someone who was an unpopular figure, or maybe a criminal. Someone who had maybe done some harm there. We don't need to get into that yet, but certainly there was violence done here, and these two are associated with it. And they stand in this very disturbed graveyard. There's soil heaped up, casting long shadows from something like a funeral pyre. The bodies and fuel have been piled up and are burning brightly. And Maldita and Knotte take up kind of fighting stances and are each holding out their dagger a few paces away from each other. Knotte turns and he can see at the door of the caravan, Virilag is watching. He can't tell if the Rose Seer is watching, but perhaps she's already seen this in some way play out in her mind. And I think this will be handled as a formal duel rather than a standard combat. So let me check that out in my brand new book. Specifics of combat. Duels and jousts. 2 combatants can mutually agree to engage in a duel or joust if mounted. They fight as normal, but their attacks are rolled and resolved simultaneously, including the effects of gambits. Both combatants can use feats before the attacks are resolved. Okay, so what I'm trying to decide is Knotte is fighting Maldita on her terms. He has taken off his armor. He's using the same type of weapon that she's using. So he doesn't have an advantage in equipment, but he does have an advantage because he can perform feats. He's a better fighter than she is. And I'm trying to decide, would he use the smite feat to overwhelm her and end this quickly? But it's quite a powerful feat, and there's a risk he could kill her in one stroke. So I think he would not do that. As the villagers look on, there's a flash of metal in the reflection of the flames, and they clash. And Maldita does better. So she has rolled a 2 and Knotte has rolled a 1. Her attack is, I think he's caught off guard because he has approached this with a kind of an arrogance, thinking that he is the knight here, she's the squire. He will clearly defeat her. He will make her bleed as he's been instructed to do, and then they'll move on. They'll put this behind them. But a part of him is thinking, and she'll know her place. She'll know that I'm the one who found this armor and I'm the one who deserves to wear it. But her attack is more sophisticated than Knotte expected. She seems to be moving to the left, and then she very quickly pivots and comes at him and slashes at him. I have to resolve 2 damages. The simplest one to resolve is the attack from Knotte against Maldita, because she doesn't have any more abilities that can interfere with it. So he rolled 1 damage and her guard is 1. So he knocks her guard down to 0 and that will inflict a scar. So take the die that caused the scar and roll it again, consulting the table below for the specific scar caused. In duels you can ignore this because the intention is usually not to scar and wound people, but the intention here, he did intend to cut her. So I'm going to roll a d6 and I get a 4. Pain drowns the senses. The effect is called stun. Lose d6 clarity. If your max guard is 4 or less, increase it by d6. Okay, that's good for Maldita. Lose d6 clarity. Her clarity is 2. Okay, so her clarity is reduced to 0. There's a lot happening here. I'll roll. The guard increase won't be applied right now, but she will get her maximum guard is going to increase from 1 to 6, which is good for the future. Okay, so clarity reduced to 0. At clarity 0, you are exposed and treated as having 0 guard. So that was the 1 damage applied from Knotte's attack, and I also have to apply 2 damage from Maldita to Knotte. Knotte has the option to use a feat of deny to discard that damage die with a risk that he would become fatigued. I think it's not consistent in terms of the narrative. I don't think it would make sense that he has the wherewithal to deny in this case. So I think he's just going to take that hit, reduces his guard from 3 to 1. So what does this look like? Neither of them actually connects with their dagger. Maldita is much closer to doing so, and Knotte is quite surprised when she kind of gets inside his guard and almost connects with him with her dagger. At the last moment, he lunges forward and headbutts her. She staggers backwards, shaking her head, and she is extremely stunned by that unexpected form of attack. But it's something she'll remember, and it's something that will affect how she fights in the future. And they square off again. The villagers have really taken notice now. So there's some of them who had been sitting now are standing to watch this. Some of them pulling back a little bit because this is an act of violence happening in their midst and they don't really know why. So I'm rolling both attacks again. They both roll a 4. So the first attacks were Maldita's was swifter and more precise. Knotte was caught off guard. Now they both collected themselves, and these are quite aggressive attacks that they come at the second time. Knotte sees Maldita lunge towards him with quite a powerful strike with her dagger, and he is going to use deny. Use after an attack roll against you or an ally within arm's reach. Discard 1 attack die from the roll. So her attack die is discarded, and he makes a spirit save. If he passes this, there's no effect. If he fails, then he will be fatigued, and he won't be able to do feats in the future. It's a failure. So she comes in at him, kind of lunging forward with the dagger, and he uses all of his energy in that moment to block, kind of parry that, and knock her aside. and it took more out of him than he expected. And she's surprising him again in this fight. And now he counter strikes and stabs at her for 4 points of damage. And there's nothing she can do about it. So Maldita's vigor is reduced, and he does slice into her flesh, reduced from 7 down to 3. I feel like all of the combat mechanics are being used here because that is a particular form of damage. If they lose half or more of their remaining vigor, it is a mortal wound. Mortally wounded targets are down and dying. They die if left unattended for an hour, but can be patched up in a few moments. He slashes at her, and she cries out and falls to the ground. She tries to get up. She tries to continue the fight. She wants to strike back at him, but it's too painful to do so, and she falls again. Knotte looks on with a mixture of somehow pride and shame that he outfought her, but also that he has quite badly injured his friend. And he goes to her to tend to her wounds. I'm going to ask the stars if she accepts his help. 6. No, but. She looks at him with some element of understanding. It's a complex combination of emotions, but she just kind of hisses at him and says, "Get back. Leave me alone." Knotte takes a few steps away. Then he looks to the villagers who are assembled, and he's quite imposing. He doesn't have his armor on, but they understand that he's a knight. And just with a gesture, he indicates to them to help her. They go to her and they start to patch her up, while Knotte walks away from the scene. And he is going to pass the night, I think, separate from the rest of the group. So there are these villagers here, Maldita wounded and being given some kind of like field medicine, effectively. And Knotte will just sleep within sorry, I'm laughing. I'll come back to why I'm laughing in a moment. He's not too far from the group, but far enough away that he's giving Maldita her space and her time to collect herself and decide what this incident means for them and for their relationship. And he lies down to sleep. And this is where we would end this scene and this night, except for there is a giant bird flying overhead, waiting for a moment when Knotte will be vulnerable. And I guess this is that moment. Knotte falls asleep. It's late. Let me just recover his guard. His guard goes back up to 3. Maldita's guard goes to 6. Which narratively to me feels great because she got headbutted in a fight and now realizes that you got to watch out for what the opponent is going to do. She is still hurt and her clarity is she's still exposed. And it would make sense for her to talk to the seer, but I think the immediate concern is her wound. Knotte was not hurt in that fight, but his vigor is at 10 currently. Knotte is asleep and alone, and I'm going to just read again the description of the giant vultures. Okay. Great red vulture. Quite a strong creature. And completely silent under moonlight. While Knotte sleeps, the bird lands nearby. And it is an intelligent creature. Knotte killed another of these birds only the night before. It's something very fresh and raw, and that other bird which died was the mate of this bird. This is vengeance. This is not a random animal encounter where for some reason every creature in the world attacks people who walk past. This is a bird who recognizes the human sleeping defenseless on the ground and wants to kill this human. Attacking someone who's asleep definitely counts as attacking with a form of advantage. Bonus attack dice. These are gained from useful information, shrewd preparations, or tactical advantage. Plus D8 is a typical bonus. I could just roll an attack. If I was GMing a game with players, I would not just want to say, oh, while you were asleep, you were attacked by a giant bird and you died. So I just want to think about, let me look at the action procedure, which is always a helpful guide for dealing with things. I'm fine it would be interesting if Knotte died, but let's just think about how we can handle this. When the players take action, the referee works down this list. Intent. What are you trying to do? Leverage. What makes it possible? Cost. Would it use a resource, cause a virtue loss, or have a side effect? Risk. What's at risk? No risk, no roll. Impact. Show the consequences, honor the established risk, and move forward. The general approach of these things is you think about who is more at risk, and certainly that's not. Intent. What are you trying to do? I guess the question is he sleeping lightly with some amount of awareness about his surroundings? Is there any possibility that he would wake up and discern that he's about to be attacked? I'm inclined to say no, but I'll be generous and I'll give him a clarity roll. So this is Knotte's limited experience of being out in the field. He's used to sleeping. He's from a farm. He's used to sleeping in a relatively comfortable cabin and not spending the night out of doors. So maybe he is a little uneasy. Maybe he doesn't sleep as well. So let's do a clarity roll and see, does he wake at the sound of a broken twig as this vulture slowly steps towards him, silently, or attempting to be silent? No, he doesn't. Okay, I gave him a shot. The bird's going to attack him. And it's going to get a bonus attack dice because he's asleep. The bird normally attacks with its beak and claws with a D8, and it will get a bonus attack die. A typical bonus would be plus D8. I think someone being asleep is an extremely powerful advantage, so I'm going to make it a D10. And I don't know why I'm being so harsh. I think the guard is 0. Like he should be treated as being exposed because he's asleep. So he might die now. Let's see what happens. A 7 and a 4. The bird, I think, it's striking to kill. The 7 is going to be put into damage. The 4 can be a gambit. So I will use that to bolster the damage from 7 up to 8. And he's also unarmored because he took all his armor off to sleep. His vigor is reduced from 10 to 2. It is a very harsh attack. He wakes in absolute terror. I feel like there should be a trigger warning on this episode. He awakes in terror as he's being clawed and bitten by a looming creature. And that it's an instinctual thing. He recognizes it from the smell. Before he's awake enough to know what's happening, he knows from the smell. This is one of the birds like what he was he was fighting yesterday. Maybe this is a nightmare, but the pain is so real. And all he can do is scream out because he is mortally wounded. So, what can happen except that Maldita will come to his aid? Maldita, who herself has been reduced to 3 vigor, will wake at the sound of Knotte's screams. He's a short dash away from where she is sleeping. I think some of the villagers would have left and returned to their homes, but they were caring for someone who'd been injured in the night in a fight. So I think some number of them have remained here. I'm going to roll a d6 to see how many villagers are here with her. 3. So there is Maldita and 3 villagers. and she wakes and they wake, and she'll grab her dagger. Actually, I think in the small camp that they have there, Knotte's gear would be left with them. So Knotte has a mace. I think that's a better weapon for her to go into this situation with. She'll pick up the mace, and the villagers are scared. They're also astounded that this woman who was almost killed earlier appears to be readying herself to run into another fight. But she's going to try and rouse them to come with her. She'll shout some encouraging words. Maybe it's something like an order even for them to join her. Grab a burning stick from the fire, anything you have, and come with her, and they're going to fight off whatever it is that's attacking her friend in the dark. So it's a spirit roll for her to convince them. She's very likely to fail that. Her spirit is 5. 17. They make their panicked excuses. She doesn't have time to listen. She runs forward with this huge mace. She's holding it in 2 hands and charges at this bird. And the bird has time to turn towards her because she's running a good distance. So the bird has stepped away from Knotte, who is dying, and sees that there is another person approaching. The bird wants to see this done. It wants to be sure that Knotte is dead. So rather than flying away, it will fight Maldita. So Maldita, charging forward and lunging herself at this bird. Her main concern is getting it away from Knotte, somehow forming a barrier, if she can, between the bird and Knotte. So it's a D10 attack. And she rolls a 7. So the option for her is damage or a gambit. So rather than applying this as damage against the bird, she's swinging the mace and she's driving it away, driving it clear of Knotte, who is groaning on the ground. And she succeeds at that. It flies up, kind of flaps its wings just a couple of times, just to sort of reverse almost out of the immediate area. And now Maldita stands over Knotte. She looks down, she sees that he is in a really bad way. There's a lot of blood, but he's not. He still lives. And she stands ready as the bird comes at her. The bird attacks with a D8. A 5. Again, the bird is fighting very aggressively. There's no attempt to do something elaborate like disarm her. Maldita's guard was raised to 6 during the previous fight, so now it goes down to 1. So it's like she's fighting with a different purpose. This bird, its head comes flying towards her, and its neck extended, and the beak gaping open, ready to just sort of slash directly at her. And she leans back and pivots, and as it moves past her without actually striking her, she swings her mace for 10 damage. And this time she's trying to kill it. So 10 damage, that burns through its guard of 3 and gives 7 damage remaining. 7 from 15 brings it down to 8. That's almost a mortal wound, but not quite. So as she leans backwards and the head passes by her, she slams her mace into its neck and it staggers backwards. I think that's enough for this bird to question whether it wants to fight to the death here. So I'm going to give a spirit save to the bird. If it passes, it will keep fighting. If it fails, it's going to fly away. It has failed. The bird screeches at her, looks again with these blinking huge eyes at the fallen Knotte, and it flies up into the night. For the second night in a row, after fighting Knotte, screeches again as it disappears into just a black dot in the distance. And Maldita falls to her knees. She herself wounded and feeling the pain in her abdomen where she'd been cut earlier, where the wound that was roughly bandaged with whatever scraps of fabric were available tears open again. And she begins to cry over Knotte and says, "You stupid fool, what were you doing sleeping out here?" She calls out to the villagers to come to aid her, and with the bird gone, they do come. They begin what simple medicine they can muster to save Knotte's life. And that's how the night goes. So that might be a good place to end this session. That was some good combat. There was a lot of interesting things happened. I enjoyed that. Okay. Next time, maybe they'll go somewhere. Let's find out. Okay. Thank you for listening. Shortly after I finished recording, I realized that I made a mistake with the rules. So when Maldita, when she fought Knotte, she was reduced to 0 clarity, which left her exposed. And that means that her guard is effectively 0. A short amount of time passed, and then she joined a second battle. And in the second battle, I forgot that she was exposed, and I treated her as having 6 guard. And because she had 6 guard, she survived that battle. Probably if she was exposed, she would have died, and Knotte would have died. And then I think I probably would have started playing with the Melza, who was the other character who they met earlier, who is more directly trying to meet the undead threat head on. And presumably, well, maybe she would have become a knight at some point. Maybe she would have met another knight who would have helped her. I think that would have been a good way to go. However, I forgot, so Knotte and Maldita are still alive. If a person wanted an explanation for what happened, Maldita could have received some healing from the villagers who were taking care of her and restored some of her clarity. She could have also had some small interaction with the Seer, the Rose Seer, and restored her clarity. The fact of the matter is she's alive. So there we go. And the other thing that I thought about after recording is that this is a game about knights taking on important quests and seeking myths and trying to resolve them. My game has become about a man who keeps fighting a giant bird at nighttime. So I think what I'm going to do, I want to run with that and see where it goes. I think it makes sense for Knotte to seek out the nest of this bird that he's fought twice and to try to kill it. So I'm going to do, the next recording I'm going to do is me creating a site using the rules within the book. The site will be the location of the nest of this bird, and probably the next session will be Knotte at that location trying to find the bird. I think that'd be fun. Anyway, next episode is going to be all prep. So that's what's coming. Cool. Thank you.